Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. We are from Group 1 going to present about the Chapter 8 Audit on Payroll. Without wasting our time, let's jump into the presentation. Here is our group member, Syahidah Fadlin, Nur Atira, Fatin Nur Atika, Muhammad Hamizan and Fasiha. My name is Muhammad Hamizan Mahomesa, metric number 20453. I will start with the introduction. Human resource can be described as one of the most important assets for a company. Skillful workers will help the company to grow bigger and stronger, and they will sustain even longer in a market. To make sure they have skillful workers that work for them for a long period, the company must make sure that they pay what the employee deserves based on their job. Payroll system is basically a process of paying the employee the wages and salary based on their work and service they give to the business. To make sure the system works well, auditors play a huge role to maintain it. The maintaining activities maybe include the checking transaction type and amount and reviewing the balance of related account in order to make sure the system works well. Through the presentation, we will look more on the auditing process on this system. Now is audit objective. To discuss about audit objective, we can break it down to three different departments. The first one is transaction. Transaction must fulfill these 5 criteria. The first one is occurrence. It must be occurred in a real life. Second is completeness. The transaction must be recorded completely. Accuracy, any amount that happened in the transaction, we must record it correctly. The cut-off. Transaction must be recorded in a correct accounting period, and the classification. We must classify into a specific and a correct account. The balance. Any balance that exists in this company or a business must meet these 4 criteria: existence, rights and obligation, completeness, valuation, and allocation. The balance that exists must really exist in a real life. It fulfills the right and obligation, it completes, and the valuation and allocation are right. The next part is presentation and disclosure. To present and disclose any transaction in the business, it must fulfill these 5 criteria: occurrence, right and obligation, completeness, accuracy, and valuation. Anything that we present in our financial statement must be really occur, it fulfill obligation, it complete in the record, it accurate in term of amount, and also the valuation are right. So this is all of the audit objective that we must looking for to make sure the system work really smooth. Next is nature of payroll transaction. As I mentioned before, payroll system is a process of employer pay the employee for the service they give to the business. There will be 4 related accounts affected due to this activity. The first one is payroll, second one is payment, the third one is accrued payroll, and the last one is deduction account, such as Employee Provident Fund, EPF, and tax. You also need to be clear that wages usually paid in cash weekly basis, and the salary will pay using the electronic bank transfer monthly.
Assalamualaikum to Dr. Suhaimi. My name is Nur Atira binti Ahmad Faizal with metric number 280091. I will talk about accounting system and control activities. There are 6 main functions in payroll transaction, which is: first, hiring employee; second, authorizing payroll changes; third, preparing attendance and timekeeping data; fourth, preparing the payroll; fifth, recording the payroll; and the last one is payment transactions. For hiring employees, human resource is in charge of managing employee hiring in these roles. Employee information must be entered into personal permission forms and maintained in a personal master file. Only human resource staff members with the necessary authorization may access or update the data. After making a copy, they will be sent to the payroll division for processing employee payments. The payroll division is responsible for handling payroll deductions, maintaining records, and ensuring the accuracy of pay information. While hiring new employees is the human resource department's main duty, Doing so involves finding the best candidates for open positions and ensuring that new hires live up to expectations. Separate function for creating and updating personal records for payroll payments prevent the risk of payments made to fictitious employees. Next, authorizing payroll changes. Changes on job specification and salary scale for an employee can only be made by authorized personnel in human resource. A job specification defines the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required to perform a job in an organization. Job analysis yields both the job specification and description. Every job description should be based on the finding of an exhaustive job analysis that was carried out in conjunction with employees, managers, and human resource professionals. Job description should be specified the title, work grade, pay, family, and salary in addition to the legal minimum qualification and skills required to execute the job. When necessary, they should also assist in defending the position exempt status. Employee performance meets expectation. These changes should be updated same as hiring and dismissing data. The control over changes in employee data is in place to ensure accuracy of the payroll. If the termination happens, human resource should immediately forward a termination notice to the payroll department so that no continued payment to the employee. This will make the audit objective of occurrence achieved. It is because the audits will determine whether transaction occurred by going over financial statement. The third main function is preparing attendance and timekeeping data. Most entities practice electronic or computerized system for maintaining attendance and timekeeping. Each employee will have a security identification card to be used for recording entries into the office. Furthermore, in this modern age, many companies prefer to record employee attendance by using high-tech fingerprints and retina scans. This is to avoid fraud in the company. Thus, attendance and total hours for each employee are properly recorded and kept. After that, all the data will be used by the payroll department for calculating salaries and wage. To conduct the effective payroll audit, they should verify hours worked against time cards, ensure that employees' hours worked are in line with amounts paid. This is especially important for hourly employees. If we see too many employees with identical time cards, the human resource department may need to investigate. That can be a sign that someone is editing the time cards. The audit objective that involved in this function is occurrence, right, and obligations. Occurrence is focused on recorded or disclosed happen and relate to the entity, while for the right and obligations are used to determine that the assets, liabilities, and equity represented in the financial statement. For instance, the auditor may ask for proof showing that the salary earned corresponds or not to the job position held by that employee. That's all for me. I will pass to the next presenter, which is Shahida Fadlin. Thank you.
My name is Shahida Fadlin binti Abdullah and my metric number is 280052. 4.4. Preparing the payroll. The payroll of an entity is determined by a payroll system using data provided by the timekeeping, supervision functions and rate and deduction information provided by the personnel function. The payroll accounting function should create individual paychecks, pay envelopes, or electronic transfers. The payroll department creates a payroll register and an independent check will be made to confirm that the amounts are fair given the number of hours worked. One special journal is the payroll register, a row for each employee and columns for gross regular pay, gross overtime pay, income tax withheld, additional deductions and wage pay are commonly included in this format. Independent check serves to assure that the accuracy of accounting information being performed by staff who did not perform the task. The next is 4.5. Recording the payroll. Payroll preparation should not be done by the same people in charge of hiring, supervising, or keeping the track of time. They must maintain all payroll records and conduct routine internal audits of the files. There should be controls in place of payroll recording to guarantee that all transactions are documented and there are no unrecorded payroll liabilities. Payroll amounts are accurately documented and at the appropriate time. The person in charge of the payroll system can feel inclined to overpay by receiving checks for fictitious employees or terminated workers. For instance, Martin Bodner, the former finance director of Tommy Hilfiger Group Handbags and Small Leather Goods Incorporated, pleaded guilty to mail fraud and wire fraud for allegedly stealing more than $90 million. He was in charge of managing the business's payroll. Maintaining payroll record is also beneficial for analytical and audit recalculation operations. In order to prepare state and federal tax returns, payroll systems also need to record information. A payroll distribution function should oversee the payment of employees to prevent any of other activities participants from receiving any unclaimed checks, cash, or incomplete electronic transfers. The last is payment transaction. The payroll records are updated with payments if the authorized of overtime is not adequately managed or the specifics of overtime input during the production of the payroll are not independently reconciled to the allowed amount of the week. The payment of unauthorized or invalid overtime may occur. Typically, a separate impressed bank account with a fixed or zero balance receives the net pay amount from ordinary bank account. It is preferable to pay employees out of a separate account that is only funded with the wage that it is given out. The functional responsibilities and duties that were just discussed mainly apply to hourly, non-salaried employees. The system is made simpler for salaried employees because the timekeeping data collection is not necessary. Cost accounting procedures in non-manufacturing companies may be minimal or even non-existent. An excellent payroll distribution control is direct deposit. Unclaimed paychecks are almost unheard of, and checks will still be delivered to employees who are absent from the workplace due to illness, vacation, or other reasons. Additionally, there is no way for employees to modify a paycheck in any way. Thank you so much.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Fatina Atika Nasrun with metric number 280158. I will explain about developing the audit plan. Overall, there are 4 separate parts that are dividing from the main part of audit plan. First, we do obtaining and understanding of internal control over payroll transactions. Next, separation of functions following by assessing risk of material misstatements. Lastly, designing further audit procedures. Basically, there are 2 categories in developing audit plan, which is consideration and advantages in audit planning. For consideration, it must be based on understanding about the client's industry. For advantages, all key areas of operation admit attention and it helps in righting implicit problems and ensures timely completion of inspection work. It also facilitates collaborations of inspection work done by investigators and other experts, besides helps in perfecting the quality of inspection work. For the first step about obtaining internal controls of payroll transactions, internal control can measure policies and procedures a company, especially when documenting, compiling, and dispersing wages. The second step, separation of functions involving 4 payroll-related task categories, such as selecting and advising personnel, monitoring and maintaining accuracy of timesheets, preparing payroll and paying employees, and payroll tax. Step 3 is assessing risk of material misstatements. Auditor will do risk assessment procedures to monitor and evaluate the risk of material misstatements of the financial statement due to fraud or error. It also can make the auditor have a complete understanding of the client's operations and surrounding factors besides internal control to determine material misstatements throughout the audit planning process. Procedures, the risk assessment include analytical techniques, investigation and observation, also discussion of team involvement. Move to the last step, designing further audit procedures. Audit procedures including the claim, rule, regulation or requirement like audit objective and audit test. Audit test including obtaining evidence, performing work and choosing the appropriate procedures like inquiry, performance, obtaining documentation and interviewing staff.
Assalamualaikum and good day to Doctor. Before I start, my name is Fasiha binti Fazani with metric number 20506. So now I want to continue with the next presentation, which is performing further audit procedure. In this part, there are two elements, which are test of control and second substantive audit procedure. Under test of control, there are also two elements which design and effective testing control. So about design effective testing, there are 6 examples in the payroll transaction. So the first is to recruiting and terminating employees if the payroll may involve fraudulent workers. Second is to approving payroll adjustment in the case that an employee has been fired, but their name still appears in the payroll register, or if an approved change in salary rate arises. Third example is updating attendance and timekeeping records if the payroll is being paid for not working hours. So the last example of design effective testing is payout should be made while verifying any check given to unregistered workers. So now I want to explain about the second element under test of control, which is operating effectiveness testing. Operating effectiveness testing is the key to the design because the goal of having the ideal design is to have a successful operating performance. There are also 6 examples under the operating effectiveness testing. The first is the right individuals in the human resource department must give the approval before employing a new employee or terminating an existing employee. Second is the auditor must ensure that only authorized staff are able to adjust, and the human resource department must tell the payroll department right once an employee is terminated. So the third point is use a reliable computerized system to record the hours worked. So the fourth is the auditor must perform an independent audit of the payroll data using an automated payroll system. The fifth point under the operating testing is verify the total amount of payroll that has been entered in, and authorized staff must examine any exceptions and control of reports. The last one is company must do identification verification for the registered employee before check distribution. Then we come back to the second element of the further audit procedure in the payroll, which is substantive procedure. Substantive procedure are the procedure or techniques that used by auditors to locate or prevent inaccuracy. There are 4 steps need to be followed, which is the first one is auditors must verify that the total composition and expenditures for the specified payrolls match the balance listed in each general ledger account. Second one is any significant difference should be carefully examined. For the third one is the auditor should analyze total wages periodically to prior years or budget estimation and check any inconsistency. The last step in substantive audit procedure is to verify the bank balance for the next payment after reviewing the payroll records for any taxes that are still owed at year-end balance. Last but not least, the second element under substantive procedure, which is the approach for computer-assisted audits. Test data and audit software are the 2 most common use of computers as auditing tools. So the first one is if you submit an employee numbers that don't exist or are formatted incorrectly, your application can be rejected. So the second one is we can set an exception report limitation for this employee gross weekly pay. The third one is we can enter the number of working hours which exceed 20 hours per week. And the last one is we can request a company computer files, redo calculation, or retrieve material for additional examination. So that's all for me. I pass to the next presenter.
Through the discussion, we can see how the audit of payroll system run in a business. It is really important for a company to make sure there is no significant error that will affect the system and affect the company as whole. A business needs to identify related account to the system and impose any necessary internal control to make sure there is no misconduct and fraud happen. Auditor must plan their audit process earlier in the process after take any related information into their consideration. Substantive audit approach and also computer-assisted audit can be used by them to make sure the process of auditing went smoothly. As a conclusion, we can say that audit of payroll system are crucial for the company to make sure they can survive for a long period.